Yes, that was Speak to Me by Bethany. Hello and welcome. This is Plain Bread with Val, and I am Val. I'm a Christian poet, and I'm glad that you've joined me today. This is a half an hour show in which I read poetry that I have written. I like to share music that I've enjoyed to encourage your heart. And I also always like to share something from the word of the Lord, because truly we need to hear a word. We need to have God speak into our lives. You know, talking about speech, this past week, I tell you, it was the news were all in an uproar over the comedians and their comments, and rightfully so, because sometimes it seems as though we no longer know what is comedy. We no longer know what things to talk about, what things to laugh about. And it's really, really sad that we come to the place where most of speech is now so offensive. People like they have no boundaries, no control over their tongues or their behaviors. And that's terribly sad. There's a poem that I wrote in my book, the book that's called I Fit in Nowhere. And it's a poem that addresses, this unruliness of our tongue and the damage it can cause to individuals. So I want to read that poem to start you off today. And it's a poem called People Get Killed in Friendly Fire. Playful words filled with harsh truths, acts simulated uncouth, go into the psychic, deep down and hide, wrenching, wrecking, havoc on the inside. People get killed in friendly fire. I pray, Lord, let my manner be sweet, words kind, so that they do not linger and torture the mind of any other, be they sister or my brother, 'cause people get killed in friendly fire. How many friendships come to ruin because our hearts are not attuned to the pain of another, as we lightly toss coals of fire. People get killed in friendly fire. Acts can be unkind, motives drive the unthinking kind. Things slip out, creating sorrow, anger, doubt, for people get killed in friendly fire. Father, score through my heart, scrub clean every part, so that my thoughts reflect you. By the gentleness, the things I do, for people get killed in friendly fire. Let me treat with respect and hold in regard the image of you in my friend, that my acts be not hard, recognizing the frailty and fragility of man. Let my spirit understand people get killed in friendly fire. Today, my friend, I apologize for any ways that have hurt, wounded, led you astray. I want the image you see in me be the reflected image of His Majesty, for people get killed in friendly fire. Father, I thank you I'm not a brother killer, but a keeper of His good. I'm a seeker. I will be true to loving Him as you do, for I know people get killed in friendly fire. I pray that will encourage us to think about the words that we use and the things that we say to and about each other, because it might be you think it's a joke, but if it creates pain and hurt, it's not a joke, it's a weapon. So I pray that we won't let our speech just degenerate into weapons, but our words will be kind and thoughtful. I want to play you music, and then I want to bring back, I want to share a word that's been on my spirit. It's been some things that's been happening around, and I thought, oh, I should speak on that. It's a difficult subject for me to address. But first, let's have some. I'm going to play a song, Not Afraid, and then I'll be back to speak a word into your life. Yes, that was Red Boys, I think it was. Can't remember now. And that was saying, I'm not afraid. there are giants in some. We all face giants in our lives, but the song declares, "I'm not afraid." Today, I want to tackle one of the giants or the elephants in the church, and this elephant is the elephant of abuse. Recently, I was reading an article on Twitter, actually, where it was speaking about a church leader turning a blind eye to abuse. And, I thought about that and I thought, yes, sometimes it's sad, but sometimes the church has been complicit in propagating abuse. And I think it's because the church does not know how to really speak to the issue of abuse, because abuse is it's a touchy, it's a thorny, it's a painful in all its facets subject. But we're at a time in the church where we can no longer hide our faces. And so I want to speak to you today. I'm speaking to you as a previous victim of abuse and a full-time survivor from abuse. I want to share a bit of my history because it's in sharing my history that I want to say, there are things that a church can do to help people going through abuse. I grew up in the church, and I was, committed Christian. I was a pretty girl, artistic, and because some people like to judge you. They like to say that abuse is caused because of somebody's behaviors. But I was a virgin when I met my husband, who was a Christian minister, a pastor's son. Yet despite all that, because sometimes we make assumptions about the type of person that was abused, but despite all that, my ex-husband, he engaged in multiple adulterous affairs and friendships, and he became very abusive to me. And it was only after 15 years in that relationship, suffering in silence, it came about that he tried to murder me. And it was at that point in time that I chose to be divorced rather than dead. Now, I've learned some things from that experience that I think that the church could incorporate to help other people trapped in the abusive cycle. And the first thing I want to say is that the church needs to debunk the myths of abuse. There are several myths that we see in the church regarding abuse. And some of the things that people say to others are not very helpful. I believe in prayer. I'll say this up front. I believe in prayer. I believe that God can change situations and change people. But I also recognize that prayer and faith does not always change the abuser. And I know that is difficult for some people to grasp, but I want you to hear me carefully. Abusers choose to engage in God dishonoring conduct. They choose to engage in it. So, when I was in that marriage, and there were multiple counsel given to me by godly people who would say, you need to pray more, you need to give in more, you need to have more faith, you need to be more Christian, you need to forgive more, you need to love more. And it was all this more, all these things that they kept telling me that I had to do to change his behavior. And that is one of the myths that the church needs to come to grips with. You need to stop making the victim bear the burden for change that really should be carried by the abuser. Stop making the victim bear the burden for change. Ezekiel 18:20 addresses this issue. It says, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. It is time for us to stop letting the victims become or bear the burden, stop making them be the ones who've done wrong. It's time for us as a church to hold the abusers accountable for their behavior, hold them accountable to the laws of the land. Now, the second thing that sometimes the church says that really is not very helpful to people living in abusive relationships and marriages is they bring out the till death do you part. So it means they say till death do you part. So it means you've got to take it for better or for worse. And someone actually said that statement to me. But God's plan and concept of marriage was an eternal bond of love, not an endurance challenge to anyone's death. Divorce is never God's best for any of our lives, but neither is abuse. So what I want to say to the church is that we need to help abused people. We need to tell them it's okay for them to stay alive. It's okay for them to take the steps to protect themselves. So, and the fact is that abuse changes people. People feel a deep sense of shame and inadequacy because I came out from that marriage, a wreck of myself. I struggled to bring up my kids. I suffered nightmares following that attack where I almost died. And this sense of shame was so deep within me that, I tried to hide from my kids what I'd been through and the reason why the marriage did not work. And because I didn't want them to feel that sense of shame. And it ended up with my kids becoming very confused and angry with me. But thank God, He's a God who can restore. He brought them back together. But this brings me to my final point. The church needs to help families to speak to each other through the process and help people rebuild their lives. Finally, the church needs to speak hope. We all need hope. There are dark days that people who are trapped in abuse face. And the church needs to be a place of healing, a place of restoration. We have to remember that God is the God of the book of Hosea, the one who despites our failings, who despites our adulteries, who despites our backslidings. He calls us back to Himself. His name is El Roi, the God who understands our pain. So I pray today for each one of us that we will come to understand that God is the Father of mercies, the God of comfort. In Jesus' name. Oh, my time is going, so I've got a poem for you. And, when you've been through really tough times and tough situations, it can flatten you and you feel like you can't recover. But I want to speak to you today that there is hope. There is hope for your recovery because God is the God of new beginnings. This one is, oh God of new beginnings. We live with blame and self-hate, thinking for change it's too late. But wait, I seem to hear Him say, I am the God of new beginnings. I can give you a fresh new day. David stole another's wife, went so far as to take a human life. Jacob defrauded his brother. Samson lost his life for his passion for another. But they were all listed in the Hall of Fame. For God is the God of new beginnings, and He can do it again. Let's move past our shame at what we've done before. Head up, eyes on Him, the God who can restore. Thanks be to God, who is the restorer in our lives of parts to dwell in. Now my time's almost gone. So I want to tell you a bit about my book that is for sale on Amazon. It's called I Fit In Nowhere, and it's by me, Valerie Pruitt. So this is one way that you can help, you can contribute to the ministry of God's Word through my life by buying my book on Amazon, I Fit In Nowhere. So I'll thank you for that in advance. I also want to encourage you to stay in touch with me. I have a free newsletter that I do in which I share encouraging words, and I share poems that I send directly to you by email. If you would like to join my email list, you can write to me at Valerie, Valerie, Pruitt, Pruitt, 622 at yahoo.com. So it's Valerie Pruitt 622 at yahoo.com. You can follow me on Twitter on plainbread.org. You can also go to my website and you can drop me a line there. You can re-listen to podcasts on www. I'm getting all the W's mixed up now. www.plainbread.org. So I pray, and I pray that you'll be blessed this week. I pray that if you know someone who's going through abuse, that you will stand with them and you will support them. I pray that, in your speech, that you will consider the impact of your words on others. And so I pray you'll join me again next week. I'm on every Wednesday from 1:30 to 2 p.m. and on again on Saturday mornings from 9:30 to 10 a.m. on the station in which you hear me. So I just want to give you a song to go out with. It's I Am Thee, and your love is mine. God's love is ours. So hold on to his